You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. We are heading in here to week 2, week 1 in the books. I'm Derek, and joined as always by your co-hosts, Kevin and Alex. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Doing good, man. First week, like you said, in the books. I think I came through the week at like an 85% clip for week 1. So I was pretty happy across all these leagues. Hit a little $3 bet that turned into 60 on underdog by using that pick 5 that they're doing. That's a sweet little gig right there. Like I'm going to be hammering that a lot this year. And I'm probably going to get out over my skis eventually, but
Hey, but
right.
you don't know where the skis end until you find it, right? You got to find the end.
Right.
You got to find the end of the skis first.
Yeah, I'll just play a couple weeks, keep doubling my bankroll up, and then once I get to that spot, like I'm gonna find the right week. And once I find that right week, I'm going to be aggressive.
Go big or go home, right?
Yeah, go big or go home. See if I can't make it worth my while here this week.
And fortunately, if you do that, you'll still have a home to go to. So that'd be nice. Right. It was a fun week. The week was fun. It got started off fun on Saturday. Like that was some really, really fun college football games that were played on Saturday. And then obviously week 1 of the NFL to see the week of the ACL tear, right? Or not the ACL, the Achilles tear. That was what week 1 will forever be remembered by. And it's going to be remembered forever because Aaron Rodgers, 4 plays into his New York Jets career, snaps his Achilles, and that sucks. There was a lot of hype going into that, and for that to be, the result of that flat out sucks. It just sucks. It sucks for the sport of football. It sucks for Jets fans, and it sucks for fantasy owners who thought Aaron Rodgers was going to go on another FU tour around the NFL this year, and J.K. Dobbins also the oft. What is our health averse J.K. Dobbins that apparently somebody on this show, I won't name names, but apparently somebody on this show said, do not draft J.K. Dobbins because he gets injured too much and it's not worth the headache of taking him.
And I think it was almost verbatim what you said, not just like
very same person in the home league drafted J.K. Dobbins in the 5th round. And should have listened to his own advice. Sometimes I get it right. Unfortunately, I was right on this one, and that sucks. Sucks for J.K. Dobbins. Sucks for J.K. Dobbins owners. You move on.
Yeah, definitely some rough week. Definitely some interesting weeks, right? Like you had the Chargers, the Dolphins, like just go back and forth.
Fun game.
Yeah, that was a fun game for fantasy managers as well, right? Like you have Tyreek having a blow up game, Tua having a blow up game there.
Herbert had a good game. That's just a really good fantasy game, unless you had the Chargers or the Dolphins defense, in which case it was not the best, but
right. One of the interesting things too, when you look at it is, it was very much like the guys that you would expect to walk away and the teams you expect to walk away out of week 1 with victories just didn't, right? Like you would expect the Bills to have won that game.
Yeah. Especially considering.
Yeah. Holy Josh Allen turnover is what that turned into. Right, 4 turnovers from your guy that many people would clamor out there saying that he's an MVP candidate year over year. That's a tough break. You had Mahomes lose at home, like that's something that doesn't happen. Joe Burrow loses, and Joe Burrow looks bad doing it too, right? Like those Bengals just did not look good. So you had like the kind of the 3 top teams essentially in the AFC go down losing here in week 1. So very interesting kind of opening week there.
And then just as we predicted, the Rams would run roughshod The
And
Raiders,
Kevin and I both took the Seahawks with the points to cover the points on the Friday show.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody could have predicted that. And then, of course, who was going to replace Cooper Kupp? Well, turns out somebody who is going to be the waiver wire darling, right? Like, there's
Puka Nacua.
Yeah, Puka's going to be the waiver wire darling, I think, this week, and we'll get into to that stuff. And Derek, I think you've already put out some good waiver wire content. Shameless plug, if you will.
Yeah, we put out a lot of waiver wire, and we'll kind of hit it up quickly, right? Like, you can find all of our waiver wire content. Kind of a consensus here amongst us on what the waiver wire looks like and who you should be targeting if you need a position type of deal. You can find those on the TikToks, on the YouTubes, on the Instagrams, the Facebooks, you name it, social, you can find it there. Best place though, just head over to the YouTube channel, click on the shorts, and they're the latest 4 shorts that are loaded up there.
So 2 more things about week 1, and then I'll shut up. The Vikings somehow lose despite Justin Jefferson's bonkers game, and we were talking about that before. Like, how does that happen?
The legend of Baker grows.
The Steelers forgot that week 1 was a thing, or alternate headline to that, the Niners defense is filthy. And the Eagles won, but struggled. I thought that would be a cakewalk game for them, and boy, was I wrong.
Although I know a guy that in the offseason got ridiculed for dealing a first-round draft pick for Mac Jones because he had 1 quarterback in a Superflex league. That guy was extremely happy on week 1 there with Mac Jones as like third QB number 3 overall finish there.
Did you comment in that league? Did you?
Did you
say anything yet? Like, I guess the first didn't look so bad for this week, huh?
I really thought about it and just start ribbing that guy because so bring everybody behind the curtain. In one of these leagues, and the league I'm talking about, I literally traded Kevin the 106 in a rookie draft for Mac Jones and a third, I think. Like, it was one of those, I needed a quarterback, desperate for a quarterback, had 1 quarterback in that league. So I went out, made the trade, like, got myself a second QB in a super flex. And one of our league mates starts ribbing me pretty hard about the fact that I just gave away a first for Mac. Anyway, I think I need to hop in that league and start chirping along that one a little bit. That should be pretty fun.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure through 1 week of the regular season, he scored like 26 more points than the wide receiver that I took at 106 did. So,
and he certainly the other quarterback that was in contention there that was hotly debated thing back and forth in that league was Daniel Jones. So I'm pretty sure Mac Jones also put up 20 more points than Daniel Jones did. So
bad. Tough weekend for dudes wearing blue at MetLife Stadium.
Woo!
Tough weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I think before we get into this, we need to remind everyone, don't overreact on 1 week, right? Like,
right.
It's fun having football back. It's great being able to have some talk around the water cooler and, oh my gosh, this was great, or oh my gosh, she was terrible. Like, pump the brakes just a minute here. 1 week is not going to determine the outcome for your season, for the good or for the bad, right? Yes, there's going to be some challenges. Yes, there are plenty, like, if you had JK and Aaron Rodgers on that same roster, you are struggling, right? Like, there are some struggle bus rosters out there right now.
You took
Kupp and Jonathan Taylor and JK. Oh yeah, like,
that's rough.
Yeah, it was a rough week. So we can help navigate through that. That's what the waiver wires are for. But don't overreact, right? I don't think the Cowboys and Niners defenses both are going to be as historic as they looked in week 1.
They'll be good. But
They'll
not
be good, but I don't think they're going to be like historically good. And I also don't think that you're going to see, the Steelers be as absolutely god awful terrible as they were either, right? Like, things will balance back out. It's 1 week. Relax.
Josh Allen's not going to throw 3 interceptions every game. Like that.
And fumble another one.
And fumble another one. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
I mean, if it does, boy, will I eat crow. But
yes. And actually, that's a good reminder there, Kevin, because we definitely had a few folks trying to take some victory laps on a lot of those player profiles and those types of things that we did, and that's a really good reminder, right? Like 1 week a season does not make, so it's just a good thing to keep in mind. Same thing too, right? Like we had some calls over the off season and some of that like, yeah, if week 1 holds through for another 17 weeks, we're going to look like geniuses. But there's also a chance that they don't go that way as well. So, victory lapping, you might want to wait to, the couple of months to really start taking victory laps on some of those calls on that one, or, before you wave the white flag on some of those as well. So, always a good thing there. I feel like we covered quite a bit of the news, the notes. Anything else we want to kind of hit up there? I know that there's a ton of things kind of going on with the injuries. We hit up a few of those. A lot of guys kind of seemingly dealing with either hamstrings. That seems to be kind of the other big one out there as well that folks are dealing with.
Real quick, and I didn't bring this up to you guys beforehand, so this will be genuine reaction here. If Zach Wilson struggles, will the Jets go get one of the free agent quarterbacks that is out there?
I mean, Colin Kaepernick's team was reaching out saying he's available.
He's been available for 6 years now.
Yes,
there's a reason no one wants him. Like,
yeah.
Realistically, I really wish he would go away. Like,
so
he has nothing to do with the NFL anymore. Go away. Quit putting yourself in the storyline. Live your life after football. You did your thing. The NFL has moved on. Go away.
But what I'm saying here is, look, Carson Wentz is still available. Matt Ryan's in a TV booth, but he's not that far removed. There's some other dude who used to wear number 12 that's still out there. Do you think the Jets go and at least kick the tires on any of those guys if Zach Wilson doesn't cut it?
I am 100% calling Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. I am. Like,
I think
you're
not
try. You have to at least try. Hey, Tom. Hey, buddy. Like,
we got a historic defense ready to roll with it.
I know that we've shared some good times, and most of it's been you kicking our ass. But how'd you like to play one for the Gipper here and come salvage us, because we just need you to steer the ship. We don't need you to drive the bus. We just need you to steer the ship. We have a great running game. We have a great young receiver. We have a solid tight end. We have a very, very, very good defense. We just don't want you to throw interceptions. Check us out at bad plays and don't throw interceptions. I'm absolutely making the call. And it may work, it may not, but I'm absolutely making the call. I want to find out what he says.
Right.
Yeah, I think you got to look and see about potentially bringing in somebody, if nothing else, to have as a second stringer ready to go. Like, you've got to have somebody else there. By the way, what was the deal with? I don't know if you guys watched the telecast last night, but Troy Aikman going on and 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 on, and I lost count of the number of times that he made mention of the fact that Zach Wilson. This offense isn't prepared for Zach Wilson, and this isn't Zach Wilson's offense. And like, he wasn't in the building, in the room, in the quarterback room, wasn't sitting down with the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coaches while they were implementing this offense. I get that he was taking second team reps, but come on, like you've got to have your guy at least somewhat prepared to go in there and do that. Like, they're
trying so hard to make that telecast interesting though, because when that happened, Troy and Joe Buck in between commercials, they're going, holy bleep. Like, we completely have to change kind of the flow of this, right? Like, we have to talk this kid up to keep people engaged, because everyone thought the Bills were going to blow the doors off the Jets when Rodgers went down.
Yes.
right? That the air went out of the stadium, and it was terrible. And the Jets defense rose to the occasion to keep them, and aside from one drive and an amazing touchdown grab from Garrett Wilson, win that game. But I think they had to, Derek. Like, I don't know that it's Troy Aikman like has some like odd fascination with Zach Wilson. I think it's the fact that they were trying so hard to find content to talk about, and they're scraping notes because everything that they had prepared for was Aaron Rodgers, and this is what he's done, and Aaron Rodgers this, and oh, look at these Jets, and oh, this back and forth game. And you get Zach Wilson thrown in. Like, you go from a shiny classic, right? Aaron Rodgers is a classic. He is a 69 Mustang. Zach Wilson's a Chevy Volt. Like, you got to try and talk up the, like, oh, well, shit, I just told him my Mustang, but look at this Volt. Like, isn't it fun? It's brand new and it's shiny. Like, yes, it's like 3 years old. And yes, you know, it looks like it could be hawked for like 50 cents and a piece of gum. But look at this thing. Isn't it awesome? Like, that's what he had to do.
Aikman's point, which is remarkable that it didn't come across this way, but Aikman's point is Nathaniel Hackett was hired because Aaron Rodgers decided to go to the Jets, right? And Hackett and Rodgers had a ton of success together in Green Bay. So the reason that Hackett, I shouldn't say the whole reason, but I think a major factor in the Hackett being employed by the Jets is because Aaron Rodgers was going to be the quarterback, and they already knew the offense. That's why they brought in an Allen Lazard. That's why they brought, they wanted familiarity. Yeah, Randall Cobb, because they didn't want to have to have people learn an entirely new language. I'm sure you guys know this. If you've been around football at all, each offense, I look at it like Latin-based languages, right? Latin-based languages are all basically the same, right? Spanish, French, they all kind of have the same concepts. What you might call one thing in Spanish is pretty similar to what it's called in French, but it's not the exact same thing. Well, that's how offenses work, right? So you have an idea of how an NFL offense is going to work, but what one guy might call a hitch, another guy calls something else, right? A curl, right? And so when you have to learn an entirely new language, because that's what it is, you're learning a new language, it's not easy, right? Aaron Rodgers didn't have to learn a new language because he already knew the offense that Nathaniel Hackett was going to have. Same with Allen Lazard, same with Randall Cobb. The only person in that quarterback room that had to learn a new language was Zach Wilson. The offense was not set up for Zach Wilson. The offense was set up for Aaron Rodgers, who has a different skill set than what Zach Wilson does. Aaron Rodgers can get his team into, whatever play he wants because he's been given that leash, because he's that smart, because he's that good of a quarterback. Zach Wilson, I don't think, has that long of a leash. Zach Wilson doesn't have the experience that comes with having played 19 years or 20 years, whatever it is, in the NFL. So that's what I think. Here I am. I feel gross defending Troy Aikman. But it's a poor way to get the point across. But that's the point that I believe he was trying to make. And it is awkward that he couldn't get his point across, because I saw this stat too with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman calling that game last night. They just began their 22nd season together calling games. It is the longest of all time. John Madden and Pat Summerall called 21 seasons together. So Aikman and Buck have been working together for 22 seasons. And so for him to not be able to get his point across is weird. Should we get into the show?
That's one.
That's one. Totally one. All right. Yeah, let's go ahead and get this thing rocking, get this thing rolling. Comment coming in on YouTube from Devin saying, "What's up, fella? Not much. We are just talking some week one, and we're getting ready to heading on into week two here, and some waiver wire here. So we're just going to touch on these guys real quick here, kind of bring up our top 5 list at every position, and if we've got anything that we really want to say about them, let's go ahead and throw those guys out there. But let's go ahead and start with the quarterbacks here. And so quarterbacks, right, week 1 waiver wire, guys that you should be looking at would be guys like Jordan Love, obviously. You've got other guys out there like Matthew Stafford, Mac Jones. Any thoughts on any of these guys out there?
If you're in a 14-team league, right, or deeper, or if you really just waited on quarterback, you loaded up on skill position, maybe you grabbed Rodgers late thinking, hey, they're going to do something in the Jets. Jordan Love's a prime target. He was fluid, right?
He looked good.
He looked exactly like you wanted him to. You sit for 3 seasons, you get your opportunity, and you make the most of it. And he did it with Christian Watson being out, Romeo Doubs being efficient yet a little hampered, right? And then, unfortunately, Aaron Jones, right, kind of, pulls up a little lame and has to leave. And they're still able to just continue to dominate the Bears. So I like Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love he's a great asset to have in a 2-quarterback league, or he is he's absolutely a waiver wire guy that you want to try and pick up, right? If you didn't love the performance that you got, Dak Wilson, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, some of these guys who went before, if you're a little worried about it, not so much Joe Burrow, but, pick up Jordan Love. He's the best out of the list that we're covering. He's by far the number 1 target to go get. He has the highest upside. They have a young team. They're going to run the ball and play good defense, but that sets up a lot of play action. He's not going to turn the ball over a whole heck of a lot, right? Like he has been conditioned. And right, wrong, or indifferent, when you sit behind someone like Aaron Rodgers, you do learn things whether Rodgers is teaching you or not. And one of Rodgers' greatest attributes is he doesn't turn the ball over, right? No. He is a very, very efficient quarterback when it comes to touchdown interception ratio. Like he just doesn't turn it over a whole lot, even for having some of that gunslinger mentality still in him. He just reads defense as well. You have to capture some of that sitting behind him for 3 years, right? You have to. And I think he showed that week 1. So I like Love a lot.
Yeah, I would throw, obviously, I think Jordan Love's going to be everyone's top target, but another guy that's out there, we talked about him a little bit earlier, the legend, going up against that same Bears team. Baker Mayfield's going to be a guy that is going up against that same Bears team that Jordan Love was able to conquer. So that's another guy that I think might be worth kicking the tires on. And if you need somebody, that's a guy to go get.
Yeah. Derek Carr, Matthew Stafford, Mac Jones, Sam Howell would be other guys out there as well. To be honest, I think I'd probably, and we know how much of a Baker fan I am. I think I'd still probably go those 5 guys over Baker on the waiver wire.
Hey, but he's got the Bears defense, and the Bears defense did not look good. I know that part of that was Jordan Love looked really good, but he's got the Bears on the road, or at home, I should say. It could be a thing.
Right. Jordan Love at Atlanta. So you got the road team there, but Atlanta, yeah, pretty, number 10 easiest for a quarterback. Derek Carr going up against Carolina. What is it? 8th easiest against quarterbacks there. Mac Jones playing Miami, 5th easiest against quarterbacks. Now, granted, all of those defenses, all of those numbers I just read, highly skewed because we have a sample size of 1. Sample size of 1. So take that into consideration. But yes, there's some quarterbacks out there to be had. Let's go ahead and hit up unless we got some other things to think about here on quarterbacks. Okay. Moving on over to running back. And Steven, in the comments there, I do see your question. We'll get to that one here in just a moment. So for running backs, the way we kind of had that ordered out there, Kenneth Gainwell, Roschon Johnson, Zach Moss, Kyron Williams, Justice Hill, Gus Edwards are kind of how we have the top 6 there. Any thoughts on that?
I have thoughts. We'll get to it later in the show, but I think we need to pump the brakes on on Kyron Williams. We'll get to that later in the show.
I think that the Ravens are going to become a three-headed monster at running back. And I shouldn't even say monster. It's just a three-headed committee. They promoted up Gordon. They have Gus Edwards. Justice Hill fell into the end zone twice on 2 short touchdowns. Like, I think the Ravens backfield, unless you are dying at running back, and I mean absolutely dying, like maybe you take a flyer on Justice Hill because it's a name that hasn't been relevant for the last 3 seasons or 2 seasons. And, you know, you can kind of see if he is able to pop, if it finally clicked for him. But I'm not loving that. So Kenneth Gainwell is the guy I'm looking for. He's involved in every aspect of this Eagles offense. He's not the best at anything, but he seems to be the most efficient at all things. So, you know, we saw DeAndre Swift basically non-existent. We saw Rashad Penny, which was so surprising, as a game day scratch. Like, extremely interesting. We've heard the buzz about Gainwell. If he's still out on your waiver wire, he is the top running back to go get, hands down. But I do like Zach Moss. I like Zach Moss because Deion Jones had his shot, wasn't able to take care of business. Evan Hall on IR. So you kind of know that when Moss gets back, I think he's going to get first crack at everything. Deion Jones is going to go back to that kind of, you know, secondary type player. So I think the volume that Zach Moss could see is intriguing as far as if you need a running back. I think that he might have, I won't say the safest floor because I do think Gainwell's is a little bit safer being in a high-profile offense, but I think Zach Moss is a guy that you could go and plug in as a flex play, right? Again, if you're hurting at running back or if you need a guy like the flex option, although you're probably finding receivers that you like more than Zach Moss week in, week out.
Right. And Kenneth Gainwell was a guy that, you know, leading up to draft day, we were starting to pound the table for and tell y'all that this is a guy you should have been throwing on your roster with the last draft pick. This is why, is how is, you know, kind of how he showed up there in week 1. I think a lot of this will continue. And you put that very, very good, right? Like, he's not overly exceptional at everything, but he's highly efficient at all things, type of deal. So I really like that one. Roschon Johnson, another guy that steadily, sneakily kind of creeping in there, right? 7 targets coming out of the backfield there, and really started, you know, from a snap percentage, really started getting some good work in and getting some good mix in. And there were a lot of heavy reports coming out right before the season got going that this team was really starting to like Roschon Johnson. And it speaks heavily to the fact of how much he was involved with Khalil Herbert being there and them kind of shifting away from him, and them going out and getting Donta Foreman and bringing him in, paying him free agency money, and Roschon Johnson kind of outshining both of those guys here in week 1. So another guy that I'm looking pretty heavily at.
Absolutely. If he's going to see that kind of volume in the passing game, I think the Bears are going to be trailing a lot this season. They do not have a very good defense. Teams are going to be able to get the jump out on them. And quite frankly, we want to see a little bit of this evolution in Justin Fields, right? We don't want him to run every play because then the risk of injury shoots through the roof, right? Like, yes, we think it's dynamic. Yes, we need his legs to equate the fantasy relevance of where we drafted him for those who have him on their roster. But as far as Roschon goes, if this is what his niche is and he gets 5 carries and 6 targets a game, you know what? That's not terrible for a guy you're picking up off the waiver wire. And if you have to start him in a pinch, like, that's a pretty decent floor, especially in full point PPRs. It really makes up that gap for not getting the touches if you're seeing targets like that week in and week out. So I'm interested to see what the next 2 weeks look like, but he's another guy. Yeah, absolutely. He is, if you're looking for running back help, he's a guy that's worth the stash and see how it develops, because we think as the season goes on, he's going to continue to get more involved in that Bears offense.
Real quick, back to Gainwell. Short week, had a rib injury, has not practiced yet this week as we sit and talk here on Tuesday night. Did not practice Monday, did not practice Tuesday. Game is on Thursday, so that may be a good long game. May not pay off this week.
That's a good note there to add in. Let's go to this question before we hit up the wide receivers. Steven over on YouTube. What up, fellas? I have the number one waiver on the waiver wire. Should they pick up Kyron, Kelly, or Puka? Need running back depth, but Puka looks like a steal. If you're going to go with running back there, I would go a different route than the two guys you have mentioned. But Puka, I think, is kind of the real deal here when it comes to some wide receiver depth, and that would be the way that I would be going to spend on the waiver wire. Thoughts on that one?
I would agree with that, especially if your waiver wire resets every week, right? If it's your standard ESPN, just reverse standings order and everything else, grab Puka. I don't know that I wouldn't waste it on a running back having the number one priority. But Puka, it's worth the stat, right? Like, he's going to play in the slot more. Cooper Kupp's obviously out for another 3 weeks. You expect some volume to be there. I do think Van Jefferson will bounce back a little bit, but teams who struggle to cover slot receivers, that's where Puka is going to shine, just like he did against the Seahawks, right? Van stayed outside. It was a little bit more difficult out there, but Puka did most of his damage inside the slot. So makes for a nice high upside. You love to see the targets there. Stafford's obviously comfortable with him. And Stafford is one of those quarterbacks that when he finds a guy that he likes and he trusts, he will look for him all over the field. So Puka showed well in week 1. I think it's absolutely worth a stab to grab him. Week 2 might be a bit of a challenge going up against Niners, right? So let's have realistic expectations for week 2. But after we get past that Niners game, weeks 3 and 4, the Rams schedule opens up a little bit, and it makes it easier for him to, be able to plug into a flex role if you need to.
I like it. Alex, any other thoughts on that one?
Nope.
All right. Another couple of questions coming in here. We're going to hit those up, then we're going to get to the wide receiver waiver wire here. JAC over on YouTube. Welcome back into the chat there on the channel there, JAC. Got offered a trade. They offered D-Hop, and I give up Jamal Williams and Anthony Richardson in my Dynasty League. They have Fields trying to move Williams before Kamara comes back. Thoughts? You need a lot more back. Yeah. Right? Like you should be getting back Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Devonta Smith. Like, you should be getting something back in that range to even up that trade a little bit.
Yeah, there's my thoughts. I completely agree. There's no way I'm giving up Richardson. He played well enough in week 1 to kind of keep expectations high, right? Like, it didn't look too big for him. He was able to find Michael Pittman, and honestly, that was one of my biggest. It was one of the biggest things I was surprised about. I really didn't know if Pittman was going to stand well with Anthony Richardson at quarterback, but he did. 98 yards and a touchdown. You will take that all day, right? If you can get Pittman to have average 80 to 85 yards a game on 6 or 7 catches, like, that's a really, really good season for Michael Pittman, even if he only ends up in the end zone 5 or 6 more times. So I'm not doing this at all. Like, this is a really bad offer.
Yes. JAC, what I was going off of when I'm throwing names out there like Tyreek Hill, CMC, things like that, I'm looking at that from a super flex perspective and kind of a fair market trade value there. If this is a single QB league, that shifts there a little bit, but again, right, you're going to need a lot back to be giving up Anthony Richardson in a dynasty, even in a super flex or even in a single QB league. So
D-Hop for Jamal straight up, maybe, right? Yeah. They're both aging players. D-Hop's going to be more involved. Like, I understand if you're trying to move off of Williams beforehand, but before you do that, just remember that Alvin Kamara does not see goal line work very much, right? His efficiency comes from the passing game. Derek Carr will be able to utilize that some, but when they get inside the 5-yard line, it'll be no different than what we've seen out of the Saints for the last 5-6 seasons. They will go to their bigger back to try and punch it into the end zone. They add Taysom Hill for some oddball formations and trickery, if you will. Alvin Kamara is not necessarily the answer, and Jamal Williams does have a nose for the end zone. So I don't know that I'd do that just yet unless you are really needing a receiver. But even at that, Williams for Hopkins straight up would probably be the absolute lowest I would go, and I'd try and increase my value of receiver back if someone needs a running back that bad.
Yeah. Yep. All right, another question. Dropped Ertz for Laporta 20 minutes before Thursday Night Football. Should they pick Ertz back up? He had 10 targets, and even though the Cardinals won't be good, feel they'll be playing from behind and passing a lot. They will be playing from behind. I don't see them winning very many games. So it wouldn't hurt if you've got an extra spot for a tight end. It wouldn't hurt to pick up Ertz and kind of play that by committee and kind of just play the matchup there. But it really would depend more so on who you're going to have to drop.
I'd agree. It depends on who you have to drop. I think Ertz is going to be the safest bet in this Cardinals offense as far as receivers go.
Yep.
I think it's going to be who Dobbs can find the fastest, and he's probably going to be the most consistent receiver, right? He doesn't have the highest ceiling. I think Hollywood still has that, but as long as Zach Ertz is healthy, as far as tight ends go who aren't like elite premier tight ends, Zach Ertz has one of the safest consistent floors out of any non-elite tight end that you could come across almost throughout his entire career. So
right.
As long as the health holds up, I like Ertz a lot. Yes, Laporta looked great against the Chiefs. The only thing about Laporta that I'm maybe hesitant on is, do the Lions change their philosophy once Jameson Williams comes back? Now, Jameson Williams is also going to have to stay healthy, right? Like he has shown that his hamstrings have not held up in the NFL very well. But I like Laporta week one. There's definitely a lot of buzz, a lot of upside there. But if you're looking for consistency and knowing that your guy's going to see those targets week in and week out, I think Ertz is good for 6 or 7 targets a week out of tight end.
Yeah, I would agree with that. JC saying they started Goddard, who laid a goose egg, but they still managed to drop 150 this week because of that Cowboys D. That was an amazing historical night.
Yes,
when your defense and special teams can win you a week, you'll just take that one and run with it. So, Terry with a question coming in here. Welcome back to the chat, Terry. What to do with Drake London? Secondly, Justin Fields or Anthony Richardson this week? I'm going to answer the second part first for me, and then we'll get into the London's part. But for me, I've got Justin Fields a couple of spots ranked ahead of Anthony Richardson in my early rankings. Now that may change here a little bit towards the towards the week when I get into some of that kind of stuff. And Terry, I'll have a better idea for that answer when I really sit down and get through the projections. And when we get into like the Friday show, but for right now, I've got Justin Fields as QB7, Anthony Richardson QB9 for week 2 as far as my rankings go.
I think matchup wise, you have to look at what challenges each quarterback faces. The Bears travel to Tampa. Tampa's got a decent defense, and the Colts travel to Houston, which is a rebuilding defense. And so I think your safer play is Justin Fields. I think the bigger upside play is Anthony Richardson, which is probably going to hold true, I think, a lot of times this year, which is weird to say, but given the fact of what those two quarterbacks are, what Justin Fields can get you. Anthony Richardson is still an unknown in my book. So I think is kind of a, what do you want? Do you want to gamble, or do you want to, take your chips and head to the cage?
I'm going to be the contrarian fact here. I want Richardson this week. What Tampa Bay still does very well is they crowd the line of scrimmage, and they don't let you run the ball, and they force you into the pass. When you have a Justin Jefferson type and you have Kirk Cousins, as a passer, you're able to exploit some of that. Justin Fields is not on a passer level that Kirk Cousins is yet, right? This is what we're trying to see out of him. So this is kind of a prove-it game. in my opinion, of how much has Justin Fields grown in the offseason and how much are the Bears going to kind of take the reins off and let him rip it. Because if Fields is able to push the ball down the field, I think he can find some success. But where they're going to struggle is I don't think you're going to get much usage out of Fields' legs this week at Tampa Bay. I think this team is kind of built to hold that in, if you will, and contain that, it being on the road. So I'm going to take Richardson against Houston, who not a very good defense. Indianapolis's run game is not very strong, so more of that's going to fall on Richardson. I just think for this week, I would take the gamble on Richardson over Fields based off the matchup.
Okay, I like it. As far as Drake London goes, what are we doing with that? I mean, in my book, Drake London's still the wide receiver 3 for your fantasy roster that you would have drafted him to be. So you're kind of hanging on to him, right? Like I want to see really what this kind of looks like over the next week or two, because I do think that this was a little bit more of an anomaly where Atlanta found a ton of success with 2 running backs with top 10 weeks when it was all said and done, right? Bijan had a great week. Tyler Algier had a great week, and they just kind of rode the hot hand there and ran the ball. But there's going to be games where they're going to have to throw the ball. They're going to have to pass the ball to come back to stay in it. So Drake London, I would hold on to at this point unless you're getting an offer that just kind of blows your or knocks your socks off there, Terry.
Yes, I'm holding on to Drake London. Again, don't overreact. Yes, it's disappointing. He has the exact same points as T. Higgins, right? Like a back end of the second round pick, top end of the third round pick, T. Higgins, and Drake London scored the exact same amount of points. So, yes, I understand if you want to put him to your bench, shuffle your roster up a little bit as far as their starting lineup and kind of make that Atlanta offense prove to you that they can get Drake London the football. I completely understand that, but I'm definitely not dropping him. I'm holding on to him. I want to see how it looks here for the next couple weeks, and then let's make a decision based off a good sample size, not just 1 week.
I like it. JAC and Terrence, I see your questions in the chat. We're going to get through the waiver wire here real quick, and then we'll come back and hit those questions up here. Let's go ahead and move on into the waiver wire wide receiver side of things here. And for the wide receivers, we kind of had those ranked out there. Top 5, Romeo Doubs, Jacoby Myers, Zay Jones, Puka Nacua, and Darnell Mooney, Racey Rice, number 6. So kind of the bonus there. Any thoughts here on the waiver wire wide receivers?
At least for 1 week, right? We briefly touched on Puka Nacua, right, and his viability out of the slot. So he's absolutely worth it. Dobbs is a guy that we pumped up all off season long, right? We all like Romeo Doubs. I think Zay Jones, I thought it was very interesting, right? Like a lot of us, most of us kind of really thought that Zay Jones would be the forgotten receiver in Jacksonville. And for at least 1 week, it was Christian Kirk who was the forgotten receiver. And it was Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley that were able to kind of get there. So if you have the depth, I think Zay Jones is absolutely worth being able to stash on your roster and kind of see how that progresses and go from there. So I think Dobbs is my number 1. I think you could argue Puka Nacua, because of what he did last week, has an initial higher upside, but Dobbs did fall in the end zone twice, right? Like he got the touchdowns. So, they're kind of right there neck and neck, and Jordan Love and Romeo Doubs do have a nice rapport that we saw through the preseason and through week 1. So I think you're safe there. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with Puka or Zay Jones. Those are probably my top 3 that I'm looking at here for this week. If I'm trying to shuffle the deck here at wide receiver and make some things happen. But for me, Dobbs is at the top.
Yeah, and I will say this, Dobbs is great, but keep in mind that performance we saw was without Christian Watson, right? There was one less mouth that Jordan Love had to feed there. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'm well on the record here on our show and have been for months saying that I think that end of the season we look up Romeo Doubs has more receptions, more potentially more yards, more touchdowns than Christian Watson. I think statistically he'll be wide receiver 1 in Green Bay when it's all said and done, which I understand that is a bold take and not one that many in the fantasy community and fantasy industry kind of share there. But I honestly do believe that Romeo Doubs will outpoint Christian Watson this season. So I'll be the kind of the lone wolf on that one there a little bit, taking that. That's my molehill. All right. Any other thoughts here on waiver wire wide receiver? All right, waiver wire tight end here. Couple of, we'll just kind of hit up a couple of guys here. But Zach Ertz, kind of the number 1, Adam Troutman, Luke Musgrave, Hunter Henry, Hayden Hurst, kind of the top 5 guys there. I know a lot of folks are out there pounding the table for Isaiah Likely, Noah Gray, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews. It wouldn't surprise me if both those guys are back this week. And at that point, Isaiah Likely, Noah Gray have little to no fantasy value there. So that's why they're all the way down there. But any thoughts, anybody that you want to mention here on the tight end waiver wire?
No, we touched on Zach Ertz, right? So we kind of have a feeling of what's going on there. And then, why can I not find my notes? Sorry, guys.
Yes, we go. Zach Ertz, Adam Troutman.
Hayden Hurst is a sneaky one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, young quarterback, best friend is a tight end. He's the one closest to the line of scrimmage. DJ Chark was out. Adam Thielen was dinged up. Maybe that contributed to it. But, for the week, it looks like a nice little play to have Hayden Hurst stashed on your roster just because of how these young quarterbacks typically lean on their tight ends, right? So I like Ertz most for sure, but Hayden Hurst I think gets a very strong consideration to how things are going to go. But Adam Troutman, don't sleep on him either, right? With Greg Dulcich, right? This is why Troutman's important. Greg Dulcich is going to miss a couple weeks. His knee / hamstring, whatever report you're reading. Anyway, he got dinged up against the Raiders. So with at least for 1 week, how this Broncos offense looked was quick, short passes, get it out of Russ's hands. It was not dynamic, right? The offense did not drive the ball down the field. They only threw one pass deeper than 25 yards, and they got a PI call out of it. But other than that, everything was close to the line of scrimmage. Everything went wide, quick release. Adam Troutman's going to see a lot of targets in Denver because Greg Dulcich isn't there. So, again, another guy who probably has an elevated floor now compared to at the start of the season because of injury. So, if you're looking to stream tight end, there's a couple decent options out here this week. I'd look Ertz first, Hurst second, Troutman third if you're just kind of in that streaming tight end mode.
Cosign.
I like it. All right. That'll wrap up the waiver wire here. Let's go ahead and hit up some more questions, and then we're going to get into our Pine and Shine recap. We're going to get into Thursday night football breakdown, and then we'll give our new Pines and Shines for week 2 here. All right. So question coming in, JAC, they've got Laporta, Goddard leaning towards dropping Antonio Gibson and Kadarius Toney, picking up Josh Kelly. They've got Eckler and picking up Zach Ertz. They kind of want to roster 3 tight ends because they feel like they like one of the 3. They feel like one of the 3 will finish. Yeah. Yep. We'll finish top 5 and want to hoard those tight ends. It's a $250 buy-in league, and I'm set at every other positions. Have Fields, Pollard, Eckler, Ridley, St. Brown, Rashad White, etc. So feel like they can win that, but they just need to focus on that tight end spot. So JAC, I'll tell you, like the research on a lot of that shows that you can stream a tight end, right? And unless your league is going through where every team is rostering 2, 3, 4 tight end type of things, you can pick up a guy off the waiver wire and at the end of the season look back and typically finish top 5, top 6 in tight end scoring just by streaming who's got the best matchup there. And more often than not, you'll actually find guys that you was drafted outside of the top 15 at tight end or was picked up off the waiver wire in week 1 or 2 that'll finish inside the top 5 there. So I don't see that it's necessary to hoard 3 tight ends there. And personally, I wouldn't do it. But when you're looking at, who is it, Ertz, Laporta, Goddard, I'd probably just stream between Goddard and Laporta, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't know that Zach Ertz is necessarily worth the taking up a roster spot to have 3 tight ends on my roster. But what thoughts do we have?
I will say this. It's all fine and dandy and I should probably listen to myself when I say this, but it is all fine and dandy to have 3 tight ends on your team. But if I understand this correctly, you're only starting 1. So realistically, yes, the 3 of them may cumulatively finish in the top 5, but that's not, you're going to have to play which one will be good that week. And that's a headache that I would rather not deal with, and would rather deal with, having to choose between 2 tight ends and, maybe having some depth at running back or wide receiver should one of my guys get hurt. That's just personally how I would go about this.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I wouldn't drop Kadarius Toney yet. It was an abysmal week 1, right?
Right.
We all saw it. It was on national TV. We all understand it. The Chiefs have to throw the ball, right? The Patrick Mahomes is going to throw the ball. And yes, we're frustrated and we want to, hate drop Kadarius Toney. Give it another week. Give it 2 weeks. Like, let's really see where he's going to fit in this offense, right? If he gets put in the doghouse, then yes, we understand. We can drop Kadarius Toney and wipe our hands of him and be done. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Sky Moore did not show enough. Rashee Rice, I think we'll continue to see more time on the playing field, but we got to have to get him up there first. Like 17% of the snaps isn't going to do it.
No.
Yes, he showed because he got that touchdown, but it wasn't dynamic. Obviously, Kelsey's going to come back, which is going to make that offense open up for these wide receivers. And I get being frustrated with Antonio Gibson, but he's another guy. The fumbles killed him, plural, and I understand that. So I can understand wanting your handcuff to Austin Eckler. Like, that part I can truly understand. And if you drop Gibson to do that, I'm not going to slam you for that one. But I'm keeping Toney on my roster here for another couple weeks because I want to see what this Chiefs offense looks like with Kelsey back and how it opens up the field for the receivers, because MVS was a non-issue. Sky Moore just really wasn't up to the task. He could not create separation on the field. And right, wrong, or we saw Toney could. Like, he did a bad job coming down with those passes, but he created separation. And if you're open, the quarterback's going to continue to feed you the ball until he feels like it's absolutely not an option anymore. So it's a week-to-week business. They're going to forgive and forget Toney's blunders from week 1, and I still think you keep him.
All righty. So over to Terrence's question. They've got wide receivers of Wilson, Cooper, Addison, Pickens, and Dobbs. Which 3 to start? One of them will be a flex. I'm starting Garrett Wilson. I'm starting Amari Cooper. And I'm probably going to roll Romeo Dobbs just because I'm feeling that hot hand there. But what do you guys got?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Wilson, Cooper. Yeah, I'd go Dobbs here. Addison's day looked good because he found the end zone, right? Like that. His week looked good because he found the end zone last week.
I'm going to amend mine from Dobbs to Pickens. I'm going to go Wilson, Cooper, Pickens. Deontay Johnson, hamstring issue, will likely miss time. So I'm going to go with Pickens, who I think will be one in that, number 1, and I think he'll see an increase in targets. So those are my 3: Wilson, Cooper, Pickens. Final answer.
I'm all in on Wilson and Cooper. I agree that it's between Pickens and Dobbs for this week. I think it all comes down to if Christian Watson plays.
Does Christian Watson play?
If Christian, well, that's what it is, right? If Watson, and we know this because the Steelers have the Monday night game, so we can make this decision leading up to the game. We know we have a pivot. If Christian Watson plays, then maybe we fade Dobbs a little bit because we know Deontay Johnson's not going to play. My concern about Pickens specifically for this week is you are going to have a pissed off Bengals team after losing week 1 to the Browns. They're going to be frustrated, and they're going to try and come back and really put the screws to Pittsburgh best they can to get, not drop 2 in the division in the first 2 weeks. So
it's the Browns. It's the Browns playing the Steelers this week.
Oh, sorry. Wrong orange team.
Yep.
My apologies.
Wrong Ohio.
So the Steelers. Okay, so
I think you're still going to have a pissed off. That's a division. That's a divisional game right there. You're still going to have a pissed off team playing a pissed off team.
Yeah. So
and those Brown Steelers are epic, defensive struggles in a lot of cases.
Epically boring offensive games. Yes. Yes, they are.
I'm going to go with Dobbs because of how efficient the Steelers looked on offense in week 1. Yes, the Niners defense was very good, but Cleveland's defense is no slouch either. So if you're going to force me to choose, I'm going to tell you Dobbs. But if Christian Watson plays and that bothers you, the clear pivot is to Pickens.
Okay. So, Alex, final thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'm still sticking Wilson, Cooper, Dobbs. If Watson comes back, I think it hurts Dobbs. But again, keep in mind this will be Watson's first game, right?
Coming off of a hamstring.
Yeah, I think so. Like Will Watson, I think it scares me. It scares me less than what Look, it is a Cleveland Pittsburgh Monday night game. It just feels like it's going to be 10-3, and there's not going to be a whole lot. There will be more punts than first downs. Like that's kind of what that game sets itself up to be. So I'm going to go with with what I guess would be an easier one because Atlanta I don't think is very good. So I'm going to go Wilson, Cooper, and Dobbs.
All right, you talked me back into my original thought of Wilson, Cooper, Dobbs with the pivot to Pickens. I like it. All right, Wide receivers, start 2. Breece Hall, I'm guessing that's Damian Harris, Khalil Herbert. Which 2 should I start? I'm going to start Breece Hall, Khalil Herbert. Those are 2 guys I'm going to start out of that one.
Yeah, Breece Hall, I think there was a lot of consternation about what the impact of a Dalvin Cook was going to be. And honestly, I think Eli Manning called it out the best during the Manning cast. When Breece Hall broke that one away, the guy was not in shape. He was not in shape, and that's why he got hawked from behind on that. Otherwise, that would have been a real long touchdown run. So I still think Breece Hall is a good play there. I guess Khalil Herbert, sure.
I'm going Hall and Harris. I don't want any part of a Bears running back this week going up against the Buccaneers.
Fair enough. All right. Start. Should I keep Ravens defense or pick up a streamer? Options: Browns, Falcons, Giants, Broncos, Buccaneers.
Broncos are good this week, hosting Washington. Browns going up against Pittsburgh is a good one. Baltimore, I don't know, is a great play this week. For the reasons that Kevin was alluding to earlier, you're going to be facing a pissed-off Cincinnati team, a team that did not show up in week 1 that I think will get a lot of things right or corrected over the course of this week in practice. As much as we typically think about those AFC North games being low-scoring, I think it's going to be quite the opposite for that game. So I don't know that Baltimore on the road at Cincinnati at a pissed off Cincinnati team, not trying to go, 0-2 in the division in 2 weeks. I think that's a big point of emphasis there. So I like Denver at home and Cleveland on the road, and then the Bucs. 3.
I'm streaming either the Giants or the Bucs is how I'm going to roll that one.
I'm keeping the Ravens, and here's why. Yes, you don't love the week 2 matchup, but traditionally these are grinded out type of games, and maybe you just realize that you need some extra points from your flex and maybe your skill position starters, because after that They're home against the Colts. Then they're at Cleveland, who I don't think Cleveland offensively really scared anybody week 1 against the Bengals, right? There's a lot of things they need to work on. Then they're at Pittsburgh. That game is always a low-scoring, grimy affair. And then they're at Tennessee. So they got a couple road games coming up, but it's all subpar offenses, right? Other than this Bengals game, it's subpar offenses. And if you give the Ravens up this week, chances are you're not going to get them back for this next 3-game stretch where they have all plus matchups. So you short-term loss, long-term gain is kind of how I'm looking at this. If you are really set on this Ravens defense, if you like to stream defenses, then go for it. Broncos or Bucks is where I'm leaning in those two instances, just because I want the home teams. But if you're good with holding on to the Ravens for 1 week and knowing that's not going to be probably the best result that you could possibly get, the next 3 weeks should more than make up for that.
I'll add to your point, Kevin, and I do like your point, that if you can get through this week with the Ravens, you can get to November with the Ravens, because after all those games that you mentioned, they're home against the Lions and they're at Arizona. So you could get through November with the Ravens, or through October, I should say, with the Ravens defense. I like that point. I think long-term gain, get through this week. Hope that you can get something somewhere else to make up for this week.
All right. I like it. Terry asking Watson or Purdy this week. I'm going to go with Deshaun Watson. It's just slightly, but it's Deshaun Watson for me. I've got him early ranked 13. Deshaun Watson at 13. Purdy at 15.
I'll take Watson too.
I'm taking Purdy.
Okay, there we go. Mr. COD Reaper, they've got Lawrence, Mostert, Jamal Williams, DK, T. Higgins, Everett, Bourne, benches Watson, Myers, Deontay Johnson, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Algier, Brian Robinson. Any changes that you would make on that roster? They did get a big win in week 1.
Good. I'm playing Algier over Kendrick Bourne.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Like that's the change. If you really think that Kendrick Bourne is going to, break out, then you sit Mostert and you still play Tyler Algier. But
yeah,
Algier and Williams need to be your top 2 running backs going into week 2.
Agreed. JAC, thanks for y'all's insight. Would you drop Kadarius Toney if it was for Puka Nacua or Bourne? Maybe Puka, or Kenneth Gainwell. I didn't see that part there.
If you need running back, Gainwell, yes.
Yeah.
Benches Judy, Marquise Brown, Antonio Gibson, Jamal Williams, Gino, Kadarius Toney, and Laporta.
See, I'd drop Gibson.
Get rid of Gibson
but that's what we talked about earlier, right? If he's dropping Gibson to pick up Kelly, right, to get to handcuff Eckler. Sorry. It's so hard this early in the season to drop a piece of a high-profile, high-scoring offense, in my opinion, that I think I would personally shy away from it. I understand the allure to it. Maybe I don't know that I do it. I just don't know. And yeah, maybe you miss out on Nacua, but there's going to be so many more unfortunate injuries to happen between now and week 3 when you can kind of make a real decision on Kadarius Toney. You'll be able to pick up, the next guy. Like, I think I'd pass this week because I'd rather have Toney in that high-profile offense than the Rams and Puka Nacua. Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I understand that. Protect your investment. I have zero problem with that whatsoever. But yeah, I just don't know that I'd.
It would be Gibson, not Toney that I'd be dropping. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
So
Gibson for Kelly, right? But
Gibson
Toney for someone else, like
right. So it kind of goes back to what we talk about, right? Like throughout this, you play the game in kind of quarters, right? Like the season is played in quarters, right? Like you're playing for weeks 1 through 4, really off your draft, and you really want to see what your team's looking like over the first 3 to 4 weeks on that one, and then you're pivoting, you're making changes, you're drafting, you're making your trades, you're really being aggressive on the waiver wire there, right? But this is one of those that we see so often fantasy managers overreact to 1 week or to 2 weeks type of thing, right? Like last year, perfect example, Austin Eckler, fantasy managers were livid through the first 2-3 weeks of the season because they took a guy number 2 overall, and he had yet to crack the top 24 on a weekly finish. And then what did he do? He finished as RB1. Like, do not hit the panic button yet, right? We've got 1 week, one very limited sample size. Just hold tight a little bit. If you want to make some small moves, make some small moves, but don't blow up your roster off of 1 week on this one. You did your research. You drafted it the way you drafted it. You're listening out there to try and get some insight on those things. Don't necessarily hit the full on panic button and just go after the shiny thing because the guy that is in a better situation. Because here's the thing, right? Like think about it this way too. There's a good chance Cooper Kupp comes back, and when Cooper Kupp comes back, what does Puka become? Second, third fiddle on that roster, and Cooper Kupp is now getting targeted 15 times a game, and Puka is getting 5 targets a game, and he's relegated to trade fodder, drop candidate in week 5, right? Whereas Kadarius Toney on the flip side, you could see that continue building up. So just hold tight. Any other thoughts there? Okay. Trade away Miles Sanders for Kamara, full PPR. I'm not doing that deal.
Nope. I'm keeping Sanders.
Also, what are y'all's top 3 waiver wire ads this week? Super C&B challenges. We've got shorts on the YouTube that lists all of the waiver wires, all of that, as well as we went through the waiver wire pretty extensively earlier in the show as well. So hit those up. We've got those out there for you. Is Puka, Terry, that's a point I was just making there as well, right? I like that you said that. Is Puka even a thing if and when Kupp returns? All righty. Let's go ahead and get to I know we've got some other things here. We'll get to these in a little bit, but let's go ahead and get over to the Pine and Shine recap for week 1 here. Kevin, you're looking top dog out the gate here, and kind of in the war of attrition a little bit with this new scoring here, but you are the top dog out the gate here with the Pine and Shine scoring here, going through it. So what are our thoughts here, and how y'all feeling so far off of the Pine and Shines?
I feel like I'm the skinniest guy at the big and tall shop.
By like an inch.
Yeah. I got 2 pounds. I'm the skinniest guy at the big and tall shop. I don't. Overall, it didn't pan out completely how I thought it would. And realistically, I felt good about the Pines, right? It was the Shines. Deion Jackson completely crapping the bed did not help. And same thing with Van Jefferson, right? With Puka Nacua being the thing and not Van. Those 2 Shines really hurt me for the week. But when you look at it, I mean, hell, I feel like I was we'll call it 50%. Hawkinson got his just enough, right? He finished, tight end 8. So technically it was a hit. So I'll call it 4 out of 6. Not bad for week 1.
I'm right there with you. I basically hit 4 out of 6. James Cook was a wash. He was projected 27th. He finished 27th. That was a wash there. But in the Pine at least, but nailed Juju, nailed Tyler Conklin. I got Monty right. Monty was David Montgomery was projected 23rd, finished RB1, back end of RB1, but RB1 there at 12th. Missed on Jahan Dotson, missed on Dalton Schultz, which was disappointing. But overall, I didn't do too bad. We're basically where we started, right? I'm only 2 points below 0. So things could be worse, as my co-host will now explain.
Yeah, so when you miss big on one of these guys, it really hurts you. And I mean, it really hurts you because I actually kind of blew away the just absolutely knocked it out of the park on my Pines, right? Like
Yeah, you
said Derrick Henry was a pine, right? Like finished double what he was projected as far as a rank goes. Called for Jalen Waddle to be a pine, finished almost 3 times what his ranking was there. Called for David Njoku to be a pine, finished more than double what his ranking was there. Like I got through the pines on that. I was feeling really good. Even got through my first shine where I called for Samaje Perine to be a shine. Right, he was projected 35, finished at 22nd. Like, outperformed that one. Gerald Everett kind of hurt there a little bit, right? Like not the performance we were looking for. Went a little backwards there. But Christian Kirk, man, like I don't know what happened here, but this guy just got forgotten about out there in Jacksonville.
He's still on the bus.
This is how crazy this is. I went through and I was playing with some of the scoring on this one. If Christian Kirk finishes at wide receiver 62 and puts up like 4.4 fantasy points on this thing, it changes my number from takes me from pretty good in the negative there to an overall pretty big positive on the week. Like for a guy finishing, if he just finishes wide receiver 60 on the week, like that drastically changes the entire rest of my output there. So, the new scoring here definitely can put you in a bind here if you miss big on that one. But on the flip side, if you hit big, it's going to pay off for you there as well. And we'll get to our new pine and shines here in just a moment as well after we hit up the Thursday night preview. Let's hit up just a couple of questions here, and then we're going to get right into the Thursday night preview here. So Gainwell, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams on the waiver. Should I drop Hunt, Bigsby, Mitchell to grab one of these, even though I wouldn't start Puka this week?
I'm dropping Hunt. There's no reason in keeping a player that's
not even on a team.
I mean, the rumors have been swirling for 6-8 weeks now, and nothing's been done. So I'm a little surprised he hasn't found a landing spot. But even once he does, he's going to have to get in the football shape. He's going to have to learn a playbook. He's going to be slow played into it. So, I mean, you're talking another at least 3 weeks after Hunt is signed before he can be anything relevant for you. So, yeah, I'd drop Hunt and kind of whichever you feel like you need the position more, running back or wide receiver between Gainwell and Puka.
Right. And I'd even be willing to drop either Bigsby or Mitchell to go get, drop 2 of those guys to go get Gainwell and Puka. That one I'd be okay with.
I'd drop Bigsby. Yeah, Hunt and Bigsby for Gainwell and Puka. If you can swing that, I think make bigger. But I'm anti-tank Bigsby. I have been since Auburn.
Like, and the difference here is you've got like deep depth that you got because you really didn't give up much draft capital to go get Hunt or Bigsby on this one. And so it's kind of washing out draft capital wise there. And you were going depth anyway, where you drafted probably Hunt and Bigsby as what your running back, probably 5 and 6 on your roster there. So that's kind of the difference in, between the Kadarius Toney deal that we've been talking about and this deal here. Terrence said he's starting Kupp, Wilson, and Kupp the rest of the season after week 4. Probably a good idea if Cooper Kupp's fully healthy. Terry asking, can Puka be OBJ next to Kupp? Depends on which OBJ you're talking about. Like everybody remembers the OBJ Super Bowl appearance where he had one great game and blow up and all of that. But people seem to forget that during that season that he was there in 8 games that he was there, dude was averaging 39 yards a game. Like that was it. Had a hard time getting in the end zone. They were trying to force feed it in the red zone to him. Like he was not fantasy relevant during the back half of that season. So even if he can be the next OBJ to Kupp, like, yeah.
I'll tell you no, because OBJ played on the outside more than he played in the slot, right? Like ideally you want him to be close to what Robert Woods was back in Woods' prime, because he would step into that slot when Cooper Kupp first came into that league or into the league and let Kupp play outside. Yes, it's possible. It is absolutely possible, to see what Matt Stafford can do and how this is going to look for Sean McVay in this offense. It's possible that he remains kind of that wide receiver 3 area even after Kupp comes back. So if you're sitting there looking at your roster and you feel like you have, at the bottom of it, you have wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5 or even 6, something, then yeah. But at wide receiver 3 territory, I need to make sure that it's an upgrade. Like, I'm not just doing it for the sake I have him on my roster.
Like it. Any other thoughts on that one, Alex?
Nope.
Okay. Would you all trade away Jamal Williams for Zay Flowers and redraft?
Yes.
See, I'm on the opposite side. If I've got Zay Flowers in the home league, if somebody offered me Jamal Williams, I'm going to say, and what else are you sending? I get that the Jamal Williams has the touchdown upside, things like that, but I want to see what the Zay Flowers looks like. Now, granted, in the home league, I have the depth that I can roll with that. Jamal Williams would be like the 5th or 6th running back depth wise on my roster there, and Zay Flowers is like my 4th, 5th wide receiver. So, I wouldn't do the deal. With me.
You would give up Williams for Zay Flowers.
Oh yes, I would. I was reading that backwards. Would I trade Zay Flowers for Jamal Williams? It was how I read that. My bad.
Yes on Flowers.
All right. Should they consider dropping Bigsby for Justice Hill in a 16-man redraft after the Jobbins injury? I think Bigsby will be utilized around the goal line, so I'm reluctant to drop him.
I think
Justice Hill's going to get used around the goal line. I mean, it's the same thing. And this one has one less running back in the way. Look, we talked about Justice Hill. We talked about what we think the Ravens running back is going to be earlier in the show, where we think it's going to be, basically the 3 of them. It will be a running back by committee. Justice Hill found his way into the end zone twice in week 1. I think that is, probably more likely than Bigsby being anything more than if the Jags can get down to the goal line.
Is this the same roster you showed us earlier also? Because there has to be someone even worse than Bigsby sitting around to drop if you want Justice Hill, right? Just because of where Bigsby was going.
Right.
Like that's
in a 16.
And I get it, right? I don't like Tank Bigsby's game. I didn't like it at Auburn. I don't like the way he plays against high-end competition. We saw that he almost gave the game away for the Jaguars, right? Against the Colts, right? If you see those, just kind of a bonehead thing. So I am not a Tank Bigsby believer at all. I know that there are many people out there who are, and good for them. Now, to that being said, Tank Bigsby's one injury away from being the guy in Jacksonville.
Right.
In Baltimore, you're still going to see a 2-3-headed monster. And, oh, by the way, Lamar Jackson still is mobile. So I do think that scares me a little bit in Baltimore. So probably not. I probably keep Bigsby and roll the dice there, knowing that I have no intentions on playing either of them ever.
I think we found the only scenario in which Kevin says keep Tank Bigsby. I think we finally found the one out of a million.
The path to volume, right? Hill's floor might be a little bit higher, but his ceiling's – I don't think his ceiling's very high. I mean, with them activating Melvin Gordon, Gus Edwards is still there. I don't know.
Carrie's even talking to about the offense, suffered some key injuries on the offensive line. So good point. JAC saying he likes your hat, Kevin. He graduated from Georgia.
Attaboy. Go Dogs.
There you go.
Are they ever going to play like a real team?
Fuck off. They were supposed to play Oklahoma last week, and the SEC made them cancel the game.
Yep.
It's all right. That was easy. That was too easy.
So, Super C&B Challengers.
Back to back.
There you go. Super C&B Challengers. Should I trade away D-Hop for James Cook PPR? They have CD, Diggs, and Olave, and almost no RB depth. Yes. Smash yes, move on.
Yes. James Cook will continue to be the thing. That Jets defense is good, and James Cook still carved out a nice role for himself. It will get easier for him throughout the season as they face a little bit, I guess, softer defenses than what the Jets have to offer on a Monday night home opener. So, absolutely.
Agree. Spear saying, yo, what up, Spear? All right, let's go ahead and head on into the Thursday night game here. Thursday night, week 2, Minnesota Vikings taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles favored by 7. The over-under on this one, 48.5. What are our thoughts here?
Flashback with me a year ago, if you will. Right, the Vikings are coming off of a big Week 1 win, and they go into a primetime game against the Philadelphia Eagles as, I believe, a 3-point favorite at home. And Philly absolutely beats them with the broomstick and then sticks it where the sun don't shine on national television.
Yeah,
absolutely demolishes them. Now, their defense is depleted from last year, right? Justin Jefferson will have a better game on Thursday than he did last year when they played each other, but I don't know that that really changes the final result. I think that for whatever reason, Minnesota struggled to get the ball in the end zone against a really bad pass defense for Week 1, at least, in Tampa Bay. They could not get the ball in the end zone once they got down there. I don't know that Philly's going to have that problem, if nothing else, because Jalen Hurts is a little bit mobile, and they have, 3 really prime receiving targets on top of 2 or 3 running backs who can all catch the ball in the backfield and start to gash you a little bit. So I'm taking Philly. I'll give you the 7. I'm going to take the over in this game because I do think Minnesota will be able to put up some points. It's not going to be the 38-3 drubbing or whatever it was last year when the Eagles just embarrassed them. So I do think we touch 50 in this game.
I'm going to take Philly as well. I'm going to take the under. I'm taking Philly because primetime Kirk, and I'll take the under. And I have a prop, and the prop that I'm going with, and we'll let Kevin get to his prop. The prop that I'm going with, and maybe just because I want to will this into existence that it happens. And it's going to be really funny given the prop that I'm going with and the prop that Kevin's going with and then the prop that Derek's going to give us, because holy crap, if it all works out, it will be a miracle. My prop will be Dallas Goedert over 46.5 receiving yards.
Kevin, why don't you go ahead and give your prop, and then I'll hit mine.
So I'm going with AJ Brown over, 72.5 receiving yards. I was this close to taking that Jefferson prop. It's sitting at 93.5, and I'm this close to wanting to pivot and go Jefferson, but I just couldn't do it. So I took the home team. I took the Eagles and the prop with AJ Brown.
See, I'm looking at this thing going, man, the NFL anymore has a hard time getting games that, finish by more than a margin of 3 points, it seems like. So when a spread's sitting there at 7 points and you're talking about a full touchdown, those are the ones that always make me a little bit leery on that one. But I'm still going to take Philly to cover the 7 on this. I am taking the under. We do see those Thursday night games, the short weeks. Teams tend to score less points. So I'm taking the under on this one. And surprisingly enough, that both of you took Philadelphia receivers to go over on their props, because I'm taking Jalen Hurts to go under 249.5 passing yards. I think when this thing's all said and done, we see Jalen Hurts hit somewhere right about 225, 230 on the passing yards on this one.
That leaves more than enough, because 75 and 50 is only 125. So he's only halfway there, just over halfway there. So all 3 can absolutely happen.
Yes.
So we'll keep you guys we'll keep you guys apprised of how we're finishing every week on that one. When it comes to the Thursday night props, last week we Alex was the only one that didn't finish above 500. Kevin and I both went 2-1 last week on the Thursday night game.
Oh, that was an omen of how the week was going to go. My prop was, what was it? 35.5.
Yes.
My prop was Jared Goff, 35.5, over 35.5 pass attempts. And I sat there and looked as the Lions knelt that game away. And Jared Goff only threw the ball 35 times.
So
it's a good line.
That one hurt. That was a great line, but that one hurt. And
actually, if y'all were inclined to, you should have been listening to Kevin all last week on the over and under side of his calls. 14-1-1. 14 calls he got right. One loss and 1 push on that one. So pretty spectacular week on that one. Just had to give you your kudos on that one there, buddy. We'll talk about it more on the week. we'll talk about it more on the Friday show and when we get into that, because that's what that show is all about. But couldn't wait to give you your dues on that one. Spear IT, thoughts on Goddard's performance? I'm a little worried.
It can't get any worse.
Yeah,
True.
No, can't be any worse
Right?
than what it was.
There's only up, right? There's only up.
There's only up. I like it.
It'll be good. I think Alex is pretty close, right? At 43 to 48 yards, receiving. The problem with Goddard is he just doesn't fall in the end zone a lot, right? So you really want him to fall into the end zone, but he'll bounce back. He'll get his yardage. You'll see him with, 3 to 4 grabs, 40 to 50 yards, somewhere in that neighborhood. So 9 points, right? You need the touchdown to get you in the double digits is really what you need.
I like it. Mr. COD Reaper is saying, thanks to us, he's ranked second in his league. You're most welcome. Let's keep it going. Make that march towards cash and trophies there.
Unfortunately, I'm in a league with these two, so thanks to them, I'm nowhere close to second.
You're welcome. Should I drop Njoku, Musgrave, or Antonio Gibson for either Gainwell or Puka Nacua? Antonio Gibson would be the only one that I'd probably go with.
Get rid of Antonio Gibson.
I'd drop Musgrave and Gibson for Gainwell and Puka Nacua.
There you go.
You'll be able to pick Musgrave back up, right? He's going to be hot and cold. People are going to get frustrated with him. Like, I keep Njoku. The weather's going to be better. He'll see better weeks than what he saw in week 1. So I'll drop Musgrave and Gibson to grab Gainwell and Nacua, and I'll just stream tight end the rest of the way. Call it good.
There we go. All righty, guys. It's time for the Pine and the Shine Week 2 edition. We're going to go through the Pines here first. And so with the Pines, obviously, right, we're thinking guys that are going to underperform, not necessarily guys that we're going to, be putting on our bench, things like that, but guys that we're thinking will have a tougher go of it and may miss their projections here when it comes to week 2. So underperformers on that one. We'll keep it the same way we went through it last week, where we'll each hit up our running back, then we'll each hit up our wide receiver, each hit up our tight end, then we'll head over into the shines. And Alex, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Sure. My running back this week that you should pine is Kyron Williams. I know he had a great week last week, but those numbers are inflated because he found the end zone twice. So yes, it was a great week for him, but 2 touchdowns made that look really good. Otherwise, it was a ho-hum week. I know he's going to be really tempting to grab off the waiver wire and plug in there and think that he's going to replicate what he did in week 1. Pump the brakes on that because the Niners are in town, or they're at the Niners town or something, and it's going to be the Niners are in town, and it's not going to be as easy sledding for him.
All right, my pine for week number 2, Khalil Herbert. I about went Tony Pollard. He would be a very close runner-up. I about went Tony Pollard, but I'm going to go with Khalil Herbert facing a Tampa Bay defense that is very stout against the run. They did a good job of bottling Alexander Mattison up. I think they're going to continue to do that against the Bears, and it's going to make it really tough to keep anything going on the ground for Chicago.
All righty. My pine is going to be Alexander Mattison. Currently right now, he's the running back 17 on the week, projected to do about 12.8. He's got this tough Philadelphia matchup here on the Thursday night game. Minnesota very well could be playing from behind early. That's going to limit Mattison on the ground even more. I don't know that we're going to necessarily see him get a whole lot of passing work on this thing. So Alexander Madison's a guy that I think is going to underperform his projections this week. Let's go ahead and hit up the wide receivers.
All right, I'm going with Garrett Wilson to pine this week. He's currently projected to be the 18th wide receiver with 12.5 points. I just don't see it with Zach Wilson. I don't think this is a long-term thing. I think this week it's just not going to work out for them. They're at Dallas. It's going to be a tough environment for them. So Garrett Wilson is my pine.
I am pining Terry McLaurin this week. Pat Surtain did a very good job keeping Devontae Adams in check in week 1. And I think he's going to do the exact same great job keeping Terry McLaurin in check in week 2. So I'm pining Scary Terry.
Yeah, that one was I really like that call. I almost went Scary Terry there before I settled in on my guy here, and I was taking T. Higgins, right? Like, I know a lot of folks are thinking bounce back week here. He's still ranked wide receiver 16 on the week, projected to do about 12.6 points. This is one of those that he's, they're going in, they're playing Baltimore. Again, we could see a little bit of a higher powered offense here, but I don't necessarily think we're going to see him get up there. I think that he finishes back end wide receiver 2, top end wide receiver 3 on the week, and I think he's going to miss those projections. Let's go ahead and head on into our tight ends.
Yeah, I'm pining Juwan Johnson this week. He's projected to be 15th, 6.5 points. He had all of 3 catches for 36 yards in the Saints week 1 game. So I'm having him sit. I don't think he finds the end zone. I think the Saints will try to get other dudes involved before they get Juwan Johnson going.
George Kittle is my pine for tight end. The Rams statistically have done a pretty good job against Kittle in years past, coming off a big win against Seattle. I think that defense is pretty hyped up. They're trying to, prove the doubters wrong, because everyone said the Rams were going to stink this year. I think they hold Kittle in check.
I like it. I'm going to go, and this one hurts to say, but I'm going to go with the guy out of Oklahoma, Mark Andrews, currently ranked tight end number 2, projected to do about 13.3 points. He's coming off of a leg injury, right? The quad that kept him out week 1. I do think that he is good to go here in week 2, but I don't see him getting to that 13.3 points. I think he's going to get closer to between about 7-8 points. Cincinnati's going to be looking to rebound against another against the divisional loss last week. And Cincinnati managed to keep David Njoku, another pretty good tight end, to under 25 yards in week 1. So I don't see Mark Andrews having a blow-up game here in his return to action here. All right, let's go ahead and head on in. Let's go ahead and head on into the shine here. And the shines for week 2. Alex, kick it off.
Yeah, so at running back, I am going Brian Robinson. Antonio Gibson is not it. The Raiders didn't have a spectacular day rushing against the Broncos, but I think that with the way that this game is going to be played, I think the defenses will be apart, but I think that Robinson will be the best option for Washington to move the football with how good Denver's secondary is, that it's going to be a struggle to move the ball through the air. So I'm going Brian Robinson. He is projected number 29, 10 points, running back 29 this week. So I think he easily gets past that.
I just saw your show notes, Derek, so I'm going to pivot. Pivot. Am I going to pivot? I'm going to go with A.J. Dillon as my shine for the week. I think with the Aaron Jones hamstring issue, yes, I think Aaron Jones is going to try and play. If he doesn't, then that leads to even more upside for A.J. Dillon. But the way that they were splitting this up, I think he has the ability to get into the end zone here. So I'm going to pivot here, go to Dillon.
Alrighty, I like it. I'm going to go with Zach Moss, who's going to be my placeholder here, so to speak. If Zach Moss ends up missing, I've got a pivot that we're going to go to, right? Like, you're not going to take the easy road of just a pass on that one. So Zach Moss is going to be my shine. If he plays, he's currently ranked running back 54 on the week, projected to do about 4.2 points. I think this is the guy that's going to take the bulk load of the work in Indianapolis, and I think that we'll see him do some pretty decent things here and definitely outshine that kind of projection. If Zach Moss misses, then my pivot's going to be Tyler Algier, who had a fantastic week 1 here. He's currently ranked running back 30, projected to do about 9.9 points. I think we're going to see a lot more of the same, right? Like, this was one of those that going into preseason rankings, preseason shows when we're talking this guy up, I very much thought that Tyler Algier was going to see anywhere from 180 to 200 carries on this season, and that is kind of how this is looking like it's going to play out here. Tyler Algier certainly getting the short yardage work there as well. So if this is one of those that if they get down inside the 5-yard line, we could see Tyler Algier getting his number called and taking that abuse on the goal line here. So that's going to be my shine for the running backs here. Let's go ahead and head over to the wide receivers.
Yeah, my wide receiver this week is a guy that I never thought I would pick for this, but it's Michael Pittman. He had a great week 1. The Colts are playing Houston, and while Houston, I don't know that we got a good look at what Houston's pass defense is going up against Baltimore. The Ravens ran the football a ton. They didn't throw it. They threw it 10 fewer times than they ran it. Because they didn't have to and need to throw the football in that game. So I think that the Texans defense will have to learn. I think the threat of running for Anthony Richardson opens some things up, and I'll take Pittman to shine. He is currently projected wide receiver 28 and 10.9 points.
I'm going to take Kendrick Bourne. I'm going to say as another good week. Him and Mac Jones seem to have at least an early season connection here, and I think he is going to be able to, be extremely serviceable here in week 2 going up against those Dolphins.
Those pesky Dolphins.
Alrighty.
So I've got Puka Nacua that I'm going to take as my wide receiver shine here. Part of it is the name is just so fun to say, right? Like, yeah, got to go with that. But again, right, 15 targets week 1. I'm willing to ride the, kind of roll the dice and ride that wave here. Currently projected to be wide receiver 46 on the week and about 9 points projected. I think this is one of those that we can see him get up into, potential wide receiver 2 territory again when this thing's all said and done, even though the matchup's pretty tough here. Let's go ahead and get on into the tight ends.
My tight end shine this week is, God, I hope so, Dallas Goedert. I already called him to go over 46.5 points, or 46.5 points, 46.5 yards receiving. I think he does find his way into the end zone. Lord knows whatever he does this week is going to be better than what he did last week because he didn't do a damn thing last week. He's currently projected tight end 7, so not a lot of wiggle room here, but 9.1 points. I think he finds the end zone and gets into double figures.
Fair enough. You don't know how close I was to taking Dallas Goedert as my pine.
That's your pine.
I literally was getting ready to type that in there and went, oh, well, that's kind of weird that I'd do that one when Alex took
the only reason I take him is because I think they want to get him involved, and he wasn't involved at all in week 1. And I think you have to make it a point to get him involved in this offense. If this offense is going to go, it needs Dallas Goedert to be not prominent, but involved. And I think you make a point of it this week.
Yep. They need him to be the third receiving option on that team. All righty. I like it. My tight end that I'm going to take here is Luke Musgrave for the shine, currently projected to be tight end 17, about 6.2 fantasy points here projected. The Falcons are the 6th easiest defensive opponent against opposing tight ends, giving up 20% more points than opposing tight ends in the league average. Again, small sample size here, but we're going to ride it. We're going to let it roll. I don't think Christian Watson is going to make it to this game. Now, I could be wrong on that one, so I'm willing to let that one ride and think that Luke Musgrave is going to have a pretty darn good game here when this thing's all said and done, and we'll see how that one rock and rolls there. And then we'll get Kevin's pine or shine for tight end here in a minute. But while
I got it. It's Sam Laporta. He's going with Sam Laporta this week. Derek, if you want to, I will stall while you look up what Sam Laporta's stats are going to be, and then you can finish off what we are going to say about Sam Laporta for Kevin's shine tight end this week.
I really like as you started slowing your pace of speech even more so that was fun.
I know what I'm doing.
Fair enough. I liked it. Sam Laporta. right now, that's a pretty good call there. He is projected to have the easiest matchup against the Seahawks, giving up the most points out there to opposing tight ends. So Sam Laporta, currently tight end number 12. He's projected to do about 7.3 points per game going up against Seattle, right? The matchup is certainly there. So I think that Kevin may have a pretty good pick there, and we'll see how that one turns out when it's all said and done. Any other thoughts here on the Pine and the Shine?
We'll see how it goes.
All right. I like it. All right, let's go ahead and hit up some of these questions here, and then we're gonna probably call it a night here. So, Pick Rick, this was back to the
Musgrave.
Yep, the Musgrave thing. Yeah, they've got a heavy Packer league, so they're worried about Musgrave if they drop. I mean, Pick Rick, what I'll tell you is if you're worried about picking up a tight end that's going to be a streamer tight end for the rest of the season, like that's one of those that the fanhood is probably getting in the way a little bit more so than necessarily the fantasy side of it is. Luke Musgrave will do well for you. He'll have some blow up weeks. He'll have some absolutely abysmal weeks. Thus is the tight end position, and it's multiplied by the fact that it's a rookie in there as well. So just because it's a heavy Packer league doesn't necessarily mean that you need to stash a Packer and hold on to him forever, right? Like our home league is very heavily Broncos, and so we don't necessarily make decisions on whether or not I'm not going to be able to get the second a tight end or a wide receiver back if I drop them, if they're a potential drop candidate anyway. Like we're going to move off of that if we have to on that one there. So any other thoughts on that one?
Nah.
All righty. Spear IT, eight team league. Are Algier and Jacoby Meyer good waiver wire ads? Just like everything else, it's very much kind of dependent upon what the rest of your roster looks like. But Algier looked good. I think he'll get more run. I think we'll see him probably finish as a high end, probably RB3, bottom end RB2 when the season's all said and done. Jacoby Myers, I think, will be comfortably a wide receiver 2 when it's all said and done. But on an 8-team league, right, like you're going star power there, and there's a whole lot of star power on each team. So you're either going to have to get really, really good at picking the guy with the massive upside there, or you're just going to have to play the big name guys because that's what everybody else in those types of leagues do. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, I like that. I like this next one.
Drop Antonio Gibson for Jerome Ford.
That's interesting.
Anybody?
No, because Ford had his own case of the fumbles, right?
He did.
I mean, he fumbled a ball away for Cleveland too. So I think it's the same problem, a different guy. But I think Gibson gets out of the doghouse and he catches the ball better than Jerome Ford does. So I would not do that.
Yeah, agreed. Alexander on the YouTube. Alexander, I think this is the first time we've seen you in the chat. Welcome in. Question for you guys when you have a chance, need some advice. They've got a 10-team full PPR. Deshaun Watson, Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Darren Waller. Flex is James Cook. Bench is Prescott, Sutton, Brandon Cooks, Gerald Everett, Jaden Reed, Jerry Jeudy, Cooper Kupp's on the IR. What do I pick up?
Nothing.
I don't know that you're going to find anything out there on the waiver wire that you're going to. I mean, maybe you drop Jaden Reed for Puka Nacua. Like that'd be kind of it.
You've done well here.
Yeah, Jaden Reed's the only guy that I would even put up there as a potential drop candidate, and I'd be looking. But in a 10-team league, you should have guys with more name power and potential higher upside than Puka Nacua or Kenneth Gainwell out there too.
I get this, Derek, his next comment here that he's second on the waiver wire. But look, sometimes
I wouldn't waste my waiver priority.
Yeah, look, like doing something for the sake of doing something doesn't always equate for it being good. So I don't think you need to worry about it. I think you have a good team here. Derek had mentioned earlier, think about the season in quarters. This first quarter of the season, first 4 weeks, trust your draft, and you can tinker if you need to, but don't tinker just for the sake of tinkering. I think you've assembled a pretty good roster here that you don't need to really. You're gonna run into the situation that I ran into, and that is Sutton and Judy. I had that in my work league, and I had to get rid of one of them just because I didn't want the headache. I got rid of Sutton because I could eat it. I could eat Judy's injury for week 1. So that I think will be something that you'll have to consider. But I don't know that I would straight up just drop somebody. I think I would flip and see what I could get for Sutton or Judy, whichever guy you want to move off of.
Yeah, it's one of those that you'd make the trade to do that. You wouldn't drop either one of those
it's
guys.
Not worth dropping.
And actually, Alexander, the more I think about this, the more that I'm going to play the hot drop game, right? Like that's what I'm going to be looking for. I'm going to be waiting for what the rest of my league mates do on the waiver wire here, especially if I'm second priority. I'm not going to burn my waiver priority with the roster that you've got here. I'll wait and see what everybody else does, because I'm willing to bet you that you've got somebody in your league that's going to do that's going to make an impulsive move. That's usually what happens after week 1. Somebody's going to make an impulsive move and put somebody on the waiver wire that shouldn't be on the waiver wire to pick up the hot new name. And then I'd absolutely go after that person with my waiver priority, or I'd just wait until free agency and see what's kind of sitting there and potentially pick somebody up that way. But I'm not burning the waiver priority with the roster you've got there. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, cosign.
Cool. Spear IT asking Algier, Myers, or Jamal Williams at the flex. I'm going to go with Algier.
Yeah, I am too. Myers isn't a bad option. I want him to clear concussion protocol, right?
Correct.
Like it was a scary hit. Scary hit that he took. But I think Algier is where I would lean at flex this week.
Facts. Terry saying that Ford had 15 attempts, I think.
Well, yeah, he's going to get subbed in.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the attempts are one thing, but he did. I didn't feel like he did enough with them for me to worry about. If I'm a Chubb owner and a deep roster, maybe just to protect my guy, but I'm not going to put him on a roster just because I can. In my opinion, he's not there yet.
Alrighty, and then Alexander saying thanks for all the advice there. Alrighty, I think that's going to take us down here to the end of it. Any final thoughts out there for
15 attempts, 36 yards, 1.6 fantasy points.
It was volume, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, when you get 2.4 yards a carry or something like that.
Yeah,
2.2 yards a carry. I'm doing slow math in my head over here, but alrighty. Well, guys, I think that's going to take us down here to the end of it. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Again, we've said it a bunch during the show. Don't overreact, right? Enjoy the process. Minor tweaks, not raging changes.
It's funny that you say enjoy the process. I remember that was one thing I kept saying when I was sitting next to you on the couch during draft. Just trust your process. Just trust your process. Make your call, make your pick, trust your process. And that is absolutely some sage advice there. Alex, any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Good luck.
I like it. On to week 2. Kevin and I'll be back on the Friday show going live 11 p.m. Eastern to hit up the Fantasy Football Weekly Huddle, doing the Bet Set Snap over there on the YouTube channel. You can find us, of course, on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. Best place to support this channel, head over to youtube.com/@GoodOldBoysFF. Click that subscribe button, ring that bell. You get notified when we're dropping those videos to help you out, whether it's a waiver wire, whether it's pine or shine type of info, or when we go live for you. So make sure that you're hitting all that up. That's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. He's Alex. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.